Welcome to Face to Face. This is a show about change and what's next. It's a show that asks questions and peels back the layers of our average everyday experience and goes beyond scratching the surface. We interview people doing incredible things who are making a difference around the globe. Join me as we listen in and get one step closer to understanding that big ideas shared create collaboration. Collaboration can inspire community, and communities create social change. I'm David Peck, and this is Face to Face. So my next interview is with Richard Jenkins. What a thrill, what a pleasure to have Richard on the show. I've been following his career for years. Can I say that, Richard? Look at his IMDb page, 115 film credits. I mean, how do you even do that? You know, and what an incredible career. I mean, he's a movie star in his own right, and yet a deeply authentic and transparent character actor as well. And he's in a wonderful, beautiful new film called The Last Shift, and honestly, one of my favorite actors of all time. I mean, I think of films that you may or may not have heard of, but Changing Lanes, of course, Shape of Water. A couple of years ago, he was an incredibly important part of 6 Feet Under, and of course, The Visitor, and these are just a few. The Coen brothers seem to really appreciate Richard's work, and so can you tell I was pretty pleased to have him on the show. So we chatted about this new film, The Last Shift, which is a deeply relational film. I mean, it tackles some pretty important issues. It tackles racism. It tackles authenticity and transparency and friendship. Friendship is almost an unlikely thematic in this film, and this beautiful, really beautiful relationship that develops between Stanley and Siobhan and the two of the main characters. And by the way, I mean, you're going to want to watch out for Shane and not only his performance in this film, but he's in my opinion, he's going places. We talked about, emotional intelligence and that there's no real, magic solution. Richard talked about connecting with a script and about understanding or having a sense, this intuitive sense rooted in experience, for genuine dialogue. We talked about maturity and why everything's not quite all right and how change actually happens. It happens sort of subliminally and below the surface. And again, this is, we actually touched on the idea of, of art not being frivolous, which I think is a really interesting and frankly important point to make, and how important, worldly experience really is. And also we touched on this idea of just how paradoxical, how complex, and how we're a series of walking contradictions, really. And anyway, it's you're going to want to step into the interview with Richard. Unfortunately it's a short one, and this is one of those that I could have gone on for quite some time, but it's a film called The Last Shift. It's coming right up. Don't forget davidpecklive.com for more information about my writing and my speaking. In the meantime, you can still reach the website, facetofacelive.ca. It's going to be all coming under a new umbrella very soon. And we've got over 530 interviews there. You probably found Richard through a search or iTunes or Spotify, but do check out the website for more information. You can advertise with us. We've got a newsletter, sign up for that, and pretty excited about where we're heading into 2021. Even have another Toronto International Film Festival film to post in the very near future as well. And don't forget, we would really appreciate a review, a YouTube thumbs up, but more importantly, subscribe to the channel. It's important to us. We've got to get our users up there, our participants, our members, and also a review on iTunes or Spotify. An iTunes review would mean the world to me and to our guests, and because it's going to help us, spread the word. And the more people that know about Face to Face, the better for a whole lot of reasons. So please socially mediate the heck out of us if you can. Share it with family and friends. And, definitely leave us a review if you appreciate what we're doing here. And so there you have it. Don't forget the YouTube's thumbs up. And if you're listening there, and coming right up, though, a lovely, delightful, very understated, but an important new film called The Last Shift. And my guest here today on Face to Face, Richard Jenkins. Well, welcome to Face to Face. We're joined by a very special guest here with us today. And sadly, we're not actually face to face, but at least digitally, we're connected. Richard Jenkins is here with me on Face to Face to talk about his beautiful and lovely new film, The Last Shift. Richard, thanks for your time today. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Nice to be here.
So, so such a history in filmmaking and acting and storytelling. Stanley, 38 years. You play this character of a guy who's been at this job for 38 years. Were there any parallels, Richard, between you and Stanley in The Last Shift? And by the way, I just want to say congratulations. What a beautiful, lovely film and a terrific, brilliant performance on your part.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I really do. I know. I mean, I when you read something, you connect with it or you don't.
Mm,
And I understood this guy. I went to school with a few Stanleys.
right,
I think everyone has,
right.
but somebody my age back in the mid '60s, it was. I actually worked in a place where it was run by a guy that just didn't graduate, like Stanley, and so I thought I understood him. I wanted to see what happened if I played him,
Right.
and I love the writing. I love where the movie went.
Mm,
I love the fact that it wasn't just this kind of. The movie was about something. It wasn't just watching this guy for an hour and a half.
well,
It was.
Richard, it strikes me as a deeply relational film, or almost anti-relational in some respects, with respect to to some of the racial tensions and some of the issues, autocracy, some of those things that come up. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think it ends with a big question mark, but I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, I mean, it really, that term is overused, slice of life, but it really is.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Uh, and there's no magic ending
Mm,
this movie, but there is hope,
right.
and especially for Javon. I mean, he as I said to Andrew, our writer director Andrew Cohen. I said, Javon is really, he's the one who changes in this movie. He's the
Mm,
one who grows. He's the one who says, I don't want my life to be this. This is not good enough for me. Where Stanley is Stanley, but who was it said that they had never seen a character on film like Stanley, and they're
mm.
everywhere in America.
How many of us do you think live our lives by the handbook in the way that Stanley seems to, at least? I think I felt at the end of the film, and of course we don't like giving things away for potential viewers. I'm one of those guys who will watch a film 2 and 3 times, and the heck with surprises. I'm going to peel back other layers, but I had the sense that there might have been some change coming for Stanley, even though he keeps wanting to see that rule book. And I don't know, is there anything to sort of riff on there? Does that
Yeah,
make sense?
because you think may change because he's not a bad man.
That's right. That's right.
And,
Yeah.
and in movies, it's the music or something will tell you that this is a evil human being, and you have to look at it. But it's just he doesn't have the wherewithal or the
Mm,
understanding or the emotional intelligence or maturity to change. Doesn't mean he couldn't if and that's what I loved about it
yeah, that's good.
is that when you're dealing with Stanley and Javon actually they like each other. I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
and if anybody learns from anybody, Stanley learns from Javon.
Oh, there's a beautiful performances. Like, I mean, there's a real affection there.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And when he tells him how much he makes an hour, and Javon is like, "What are you kidding me?"
Right.
I mean, Stanley has no idea that this is not a good salary. So but it it is not a satisfying ending in the sense that, oh, okay, everything's all right in the world, because everything is not all right in the world. This is the world is it never is, and I love it. I love the fact that scene on the bus, that last scene. You think maybe Stanley's going to go apologize,
That's
but
right. That's right.
he doesn't have the wherewithal to do it.
It's interesting that you bring up maturity. I've never really thought of it in that sense, just that idea of, turning the corner, from an existential perspective, I guess you could say. How does, it's fascinating, this world we're currently living in. Like you say, everything is not all right. How do you convince somebody, and forgive the polarization here, but on the other side, that things are not quite right? That, do you know what I mean? And this is why I love the fact that you've been telling stories all your life. And by the way, can I just say what a huge fan I am of The Visitor? And I think a film and a story like that has changed people's lives, if that makes sense.
Well, it's is relevant today or more relevant than when we shot it.
Mm, mm.
That's why, people say, "Oh, I want to be entertained. Just entertain me."
That's right.
It's
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, but that's not what you mean. You don't mean that.
Right.
It's
That's
usually
funny.
when it happens after something they see upsets them. And I
Right.
understand
Interesting.
that. But it's like, all I want is, and what you want to say is, okay, well then you go make the movie.
Right.
That's what, because Andrew Cohen is making the movie he wants to make. He's saying something that he wants to say. Being a documentary filmmaker, looking at the world from a different perspective than I have, certainly.
Mm.
He thinks this story is an untold story that needed to be heard, of this kind of relationship in
Right.
America, a
Well,
world in America.
Richard, there's something I love. I love that you reminded me of, and our audience, of Andrew's documentary filmmaking. And there's a real interesting sort of line, I suppose, between sort of that idea of truth telling, right? I mean, there's so much truth in The Last Shift, and yet it's rooted in fiction, and it's in a real place, and with real people. But do you know what I mean? And I think it connects to the question about how do you change people's minds and hearts and souls, and get them to think differently.
I don't know, but it's subliminal, I think. I mean,
Mm,
it's the better the art, the more successful it is,
mm,
but that it's, art, whether it's in the theater or on screen, it's not just there to make you happy. I mean, it just is.
right. Right,
I
right.
mean, it is there. I mean, that's there.
It's part of
That
it, sure.
has to be there. Good God, it can't bore you out of your mind. But it's, you go back to the Greeks. I mean, everything. It's how lessons are taught.
Right.
It's how eyes are opened. It's how things are peeled back, layers are peeled back. It's somebody looking at the world, whether it's a novelist or, I mean, the arts are not frivolous. They're not frivolous. And it's tough, but it's important. And to call something important, it just is a kiss of death. I understand that. And I don't mean the
Mm,
movie is important. It's beyond, it's not up to me to say it is or it
r-
isn't. But you try to do something, you try to illuminate something a little bit. And it's hard
mm.
for, an old white guy to talk about this, because
Right.
it's not it's not up to me.
Mm.
It's been up to people like me for too long. And it really is not up to me. And so it's hard to be in this conversation, because the truth is I should just keep my mouth shut, stand back, and let others take the
Mm.
reins,
And
you
yet,
know.
and yet, I totally appreciate that, and I'm the middle-aged white cisgendered male over on this side of the microphone, so I totally get that, and but I do love that you're calling these things out. Andrew's calling these things out. This film, these stories are calling things like this out, and hopefully we can trust that over time, right? There is some kind of hope there. I mean, when I got the sense when he freaks out on Javon and says that's frickin' baloney, the white privilege scene, eh, that he was actually convicted, and there was a little, and when he says to Dale, and he says, do you ever think of Ricky? I actually felt like, okay, change is possible. This is coming. It's just super slow.
It is slow. And the thing is, if all you've heard your whole life are if your circle of friends are Dale,
Right.
I mean, that's what you hear.
Context.
this white privilege is a bunch of baloney, and this, I mean, that's why I mean his emotional maturity and his world experience is so tiny, so
Right.
small,
Right.
that he just is convinced of one thing, and it's hard to get him to believe something else. But I think what if the film upsets you, or if it feels like the questions aren't answered, which is, it's like, it's not the job of a movie maker to
Right.
answer your question. It's not the job.
Right. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
job is to say, this is what's happening. This is what we see. This is what I want you to see. That this is a world that may not be obvious to you, but it's out there. It's there, and we have a lot of trouble in America. And this was Andrew's kind of way of focusing on this with the forgotten people.
Well, it's interesting. It'll be interesting to hear what Andrew has to say in a couple of years. Hey, Andrew, are you going to make more narrative films, or are you going to go back to
Oh
the
yeah,
back to the documentary thing? Because there's more.
I wouldn't let him not make more narrative.
That's awesome. That's very
Because
cool.
I think, and he's a fantastic writer. He's a wonderful writer. And yeah, he should be making more narrative films.
That's great. So Stanley only missed taking the bus once in 38 years. Any similarities there, Richard? I mean, yeah, that's some real commitment. I mean,
I
clearly,
like to be on time, but I also have a tendency to oversleep. So
right.
there's some classes in college that there were times in college I woke up and it was dark and I didn't know what day it was. So
right.
yeah, but
so you've missed the bus before, is what you're saying.
I have missed the bus, but it's a horrible feeling.
It's a horrible feeling.
Miss the bus and think, there's one coming. Don't worry about it.
That's
but
right.
I don't like to miss the bus.
Well, doesn't it though? Isn't this beautiful about, it's interesting sort of segue from your writing comment about Andrew. I mean, isn't this what it's really about? Chiseling away at that kind of, I don't know, foundational thinking, that kind of systemic thinking, like it's all in the handbook. If only I had a better handbook, I'd know how to drive this. What does he say when he's in the car? Which is a hilarious scene, by the way. We need the darn manual, right? It's all about it. We need the darn manual. It's all about the rules for this guy.
Except he's so funny because he says, he says you have to be able to improvise in this job.
Right. Making hamburgers. Yep.
Making, like he ran out of ketchup one time and he ran out of
it wasn't pretty.
It wasn't pretty. But then he turns right around and says, just follow the rules and you'll be good. So I mean, he is a man of contradictions in some ways. The advice that he gives Javon is just that Brett Favre thing, which I adore. I have no idea what it means, but he's giving him life advice. It's just. I mean, I know I knew a few guys like this, and actually, the thing with the high school class ring, I added.
Oh, that's really interesting that this is the establishing shot of the film, right? Like that focus is, that metaphorical sort of, he's still maybe stuck in the past to some degree, right?
Because he never graduated, but he's wearing a class ring.
Lovely.
And when I was in high school in the 60s, you ordered your class ring your junior year and you paid for it. And I knew a few that didn't graduate that wore their class ring.
Right.
Because they paid for it,
Right, sure.
So that I added, I said, Andrew, I got to do this because, and then he asked me about what, why are you wearing a class ring if you didn't graduate? And I said, well, I paid for it.
Well, there's such a sense of pride there, right? It's unshakable pride.
Yeah, well, that's all all he has, that basketball team back when he was in high school. And it's just, his world experience is very limited. But again, he's not a bad man.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I don't think he is. I think he does terrible things. And I think he feels awful about it, but he doesn't know how to remedy it.
He doesn't know how to take the next step.
The fact is, what he does to Javon is just unthinkable, awful.
Yeah, it really is, and it's done in such an understated way too. It's a real 180-degree shift in a sense, from a
And,
storytelling perspective. But
and the
that's
way that and the way that Javon deals with it is just it's brilliant. I mean,
it is.
mobile and yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't this young actor Shane Paul
Oh,
McGee?
he's fantastic. He's fantastic, and the rapport you guys had on screen was. I hope it was like that off screen too. It was just.
We had such fun together. We had such fun. We rehearsed a week
Mm,
uh, in the abandoned fast food place, and
it looked abandoned.
we ate a lot of Chicago hot dogs and Italian beef sandwiches,
That's fun.
and I look it in the movie. It's like that's not a basketball under my shirt.
Right, got it. Yeah, you've been hanging
So
out at Oscars just one day too long.
yeah, so it was a ball.
That's
Actually.
what. It's so wonderful to hear because it really does
Got
come
it
out.
to Chicago, and I'm from Illinois,
Mm,
and I love Chicago. And it was in the summer, and my wife came out, and she's from the city. I'm from outside of Chicago, but she's from the city, so we saw a lot of relatives and friends, and
oh, that's amazing.
it was a great shoot.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So sadly, we got to wrap it up in a couple minutes, and I really enjoyed getting to know you a little bit more and just chat. I mean, for me, face to face, I'm in my 8th year now, 540 published interviews, and you just go, there's something powerful about a great conversation, and I try to, those seeds that are planted as people listen, and I think there's something about storytelling, right? That seeds get planted, like you said, subliminal. Do you? What is it? 115, 120 film credits in your past. So many filmmakers you've worked with. You said early on you connected. You look for, what was it? You look to connect with a script.
Yeah,
How do you do that? Like, is it totally intuitive? Wow, this one I need to make.
Yeah, you just, but you've read enough bad scripts in your life
Right.
that you learn, when dialogue is not dialogue. It's not people really aren't talking to each other. It's a way for the plot to be clear. What you're doing is not having a conversation with somebody. You're explaining what the audience needs to know. And as soon as you read, "You're my brother," and it's like, okay, I know he's my brother. Why am I saying? Right. I'm saying it so the audience will know he's my brother. But a brilliant screenwriter will find another way to do that. That's a lazy way to do it. But a great writer will find another way for the audience to know that that's your brother.
Mm.
And you learn after reading so many bad ones that when a good one comes along, it's just like, oh, okay.
Experience is essential.
Yeah.
Is there, last question, I promise, Richard, is there a film that you still want to make or a story that you feel like you need to tell?
I've never operated that way. It's never been, I think one of the reasons I love being an actor is I don't know what's coming next.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
And I love that part of the profession, the uncertainty of it. It's terrifying,
right,
especially when you're young and out of work, but it is exciting because you never know what's around the corner. And
so great.
I've always, if I look back on my career and I say, God, that happened because that happened. If I hadn't done that, this wouldn't have. So, being an actor, it's not a career you plan.
Right.
You have to kind of go with it.
Kind of unfolds around you.
Yes.
Well, Richard, what a pleasure chatting with you today. It's been wonderful having you on the show, and hopefully we'll get a chance to chat again. And I so wish this was over a coffee at a film festival somewhere in North America, but sadly it isn't.
Maybe
but
in 2 years we'll do it.
Well, maybe we'll do it. So thanks again. We've been talking with Richard Jenkins today about his lovely, wonderful, beautiful, relational new film, The Last Shift. Richard, it's been a real pleasure having you on Face to Face.
I enjoyed it. Thank you, sir.